Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. I am so glad that you're joining me today for a delicious vegan cooking demo to make hearty vegetable lasagna. So, my name is Jessica. I'm with Afro-Vegan Society, and I'm here to share some delicious recipes with you. So, this recipe is really, really simple, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's complete. So, here is our lasagna. It has layers of lasagna noodles, a meaty marinara sauce made with chickpeas and mushrooms, and it also has a creamy dairy-free ricotta cheese made with tofu and sunflower seeds, some non-dairy milk, and then some spinach and fresh basil. So you can use whatever herbs you like. And so we're just doing this in 3 parts. The first part is making our creamy ricotta, our dairy-free ricotta. The second part is making our hearty mushroom and chickpea marinara sauce. And then the third part is just assembling all these ingredients together with our lasagna noodles and our vegan cheese. So with that said, let's get started with the first part of this recipe. Well, I have my Vitamix blender here. You honestly don't need a super high-speed blender for this step, but I have a high-speed blender, and that is one of the tools you need. Let me go through all the ingredients before I start putting stuff in the blender though, okay? So we have some fresh minced garlic, but you could use garlic powder if you prefer. We have 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. We have the juice of 1 lemon squeezed. We also have some fresh basil, roughly chopped. We've got our spinach. So this is a cup of steamed spinach. So not a cup of fresh spinach, but the spinach after it's been steamed. So for me personally, I just find that it's easiest to use a frozen spinach and let it thaw. So that's what I have here, some chopped steamed spinach. I have our soaked sunflower seeds. So I used raw sunflower seeds and then I soaked them overnight with water. So I started off with a 1/2 cup, but after it absorbed all the water, I have almost a cup of sunflower seeds here. I have some plant milk. This is just a plain unsweetened coconut milk. So it's not coconut milk from the can that's higher in fat. This is from the carton. So, you know, it's a lot lighter. And then we also have 1 block of firm tofu. And we have some tapioca starch. So I'm going to show you how to put all these ingredients together and somehow turn it into a ricotta cheese. Now, I will say that I got an email from someone who registered for this cooking demo asking, what can I use if I don't eat soy instead of the tofu? So there are a couple soy-free tofus on the market. So there's a pumpkin seed tofu, and I've also seen that there is a hemp seed tofu. So you could use those instead. They're a little bit pricier, and you kind of have to go to specialty grocery stores to be able to find it. But if you just want to keep it simple, use more sunflower seeds. So this is 1/2 cup of raw sunflower seeds that I soaked overnight that turned into a cup. I would just say up it from 1/2 cup to 1 1/2 cups and then soak it overnight, and you will have enough to create your ricotta. But you could also use another nut or seed, like you could use cashews or almonds. So all of those are great alternatives to using tofu or sunflower seeds in this ricotta. Okay, so let's get started by blending. So I'm going to add our sunflower seeds. I'm actually going to pour some of our plant milk in this jar just to loosen up any ones that are stuck. And then I'm going to add in a couple pinches of salt. I'm going to add in our lemon juice. This is the juice of 1 lemon. And then I'm going to add in some of our garlic powder. Excuse me, this is fresh minced garlic. So fresh minced garlic does have a more potent taste. So you may want to use a little less depending on what your preference is. But we will also be using garlic in our marinara sauce. And then we're also going to use 2 tablespoons of tapioca starch. So I'm just going to add these in. And let's see, put our lid on, and this is going to be loud. But basically you just want to blend it for about a minute till everything is smooth. So let's do that. Turn it on. So our sunflower seeds don't need to be perfectly smooth, but they're going to add the liquid creamy element to our vegan ricotta cheese. So this is good enough. All the seeds are broken down, and that's going to work just perfectly. Now, before I add it to our tofu, I want to crumble our tofu. So we just have a firm block of tofu here, and I'm just going to use my hands to crumble it. So once again, this is something that does not have to be perfect. It just depends on how much texture you like. Because we're making a vegetable lasagna, there's going to be a lot softer ingredients in this recipe. And so it might be nice to have a few, larger chunks of the tofu just so you have something meaty to sink your teeth into as you eat your slices of lasagna. So I'm just trying to crumble these up fairly evenly. And it only takes a few seconds, honestly. It's really quick. And this is an excellent source of protein as well. So if you're looking for ways to up the plant protein in your dishes, this is a great way to get in some extra protein. But like I said, sunflower seeds, using all sunflower seeds, using cashews, using almonds. You can use, what else did I say? Oh, you can use, pumpkin seed tofu or hemp seed tofu. Any of those would work well instead of using soy if you're avoiding soy for some reason. Let me wipe my hands off. And next, we're just going to chop it up a little bit more with our spatula just to get it a little bit smaller. I hope you can see. And if you're cooking along with me, let me know how it's going for you. Is it smelling good yet? It's already smelling really good in here because I have so many fresh aromatic vegetables chopped up in my kitchen. So, okay. So now I'm going to pour our blended sunflower seeds and plant milk over this. Okay. And then we're just going to mix this together till it's evenly combined. And I'm calling it a vegan ricotta, but honestly, it kind of looks like vegan cottage cheese to me. And my mom would go back and forth between ricotta and cream cheese when she would make her lasagna when I was growing up. So I like both textures. Now we added the tapioca starch to this because you can see it looks a little bit loose. There's from the liquid, from the plant milk and the sunflower seeds. So we added the tapioca starch because as it cooks in the oven, it will thicken. So it'll bind it together, give it a thicker consistency so it won't be so wet. And I'm thinking that now is a good time to go ahead and add in our nutritional yeast. So this is 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. And if you're new to vegan cooking, nutritional yeast is used so much. It has a naturally cheesy, nutty flavor that is great for adding cheesy flavors to vegan dishes. So we're going to add 1/4 cup of this in. Okay. And then we're also going to add in our spinach. And we're going to add in about half of our fresh basil. And it smells so fresh and pungent. And it kind of gives me like pesto vibes. So you're getting like pesto flavors in your lasagna as well, without having to go through the work of creating a pesto separately by itself. But if you were, making this and you wanted to take some shortcuts, I feel like there are brands that make vegan pestos. Typically, they have things like Parmesan cheese, which has dairy in it. So you have to read the label to make sure that it specifically indicates that it's vegan. But if you don't want to add, freshly chopped basil, you could totally add a few tablespoons of vegan pesto to your ricotta cheese just to bump up the flavors a little bit. Okay. So this is looking good. Just making sure we get a nice consistency. This should be creamy. It doesn't need to be perfectly uniform, but we do want everything to come together really, really nicely. Okay. All right, I think that's looking really good. So here we have our dairy-free ricotta or dairy-free cottage cheese made from tofu, sunflower seeds with spinach and fresh basil, some delicious garlic. So there are lots and lots of delicious aromatic vegetables in this sauce. This sauce has all of the veggies. This is about celebrating the veggies in this lasagna. So we're gonna load it up with some delicious stuff as we go. So in this meaty marinara sauce, we have 1 medium onion diced. You can use whatever kind of onion you like. You could even use scallions. I have here 2 large portobello mushroom tops diced. You can use any style of mushroom that you like. Mushrooms are going to cook down a lot. They're going to release a lot of water. So the measurement, you might want to use a lot of mushrooms because they're going to cook down quite a bit in the cooking process. I also have 1 bell pepper diced. So you can use red, green, yellow, whatever flavor you like. I mean, the flavors are slightly different, but they'll all get you a delicious marinara sauce once you're done. And then, of course, we have our chickpeas. This is 2 cans to 15-ounce cans of chickpeas, drained and rinsed. And yes, these are going to give a lot of body and fiber and protein and nutrients to this dish. And then in terms of spices, of course, we're using sea salt. I have a blend here of oregano, thyme, and chili flakes. Now, if you don't like spice, you could leave that out, but I think it adds a nice little bit of heat. And then we also have some cumin, paprika, and fennel seeds. So when my mom made lasagna growing up, she always added Italian sausage to her ground beef. And so we're not using Italian sausage or ground beef. We're strictly sticking to plants. But these spices, cumin, paprika, and fennel seeds, add a great flavor that, reminds me of that Italian sausage. So we have that. And then we have a tablespoon of liquid aminos. You could use tamari, you could use soy sauce, but this is going to give some of that deeper umami, meaty flavor to the sauce. So I'm going to start off by adding our herbs to the pan and just letting them toast really, really quickly. We don't want these to cook long at all. I just want to be able to smell them. So toss this a bit, literally a couple seconds. And then we're going to throw in our onions. Okay. Now you can add some vegetable broth or some oil to your pan when you're cooking this. But honestly, sometimes I like to cook this dry. I think it helps them to just release their natural liquids and then start to caramelize naturally. Water kind of dilutes the flavor a little bit, but vegetable broth is really nice because it infuses more flavor into your veggies, but you only need like 1 or 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to add that in. I'm going to add in our mushrooms. I'm going to add in our garlic. This is the remaining garlic. About 3 or 4 cloves, but adjust it to whatever amount you like. And you can also use fresh. You can use granulated, you can use flakes, you can use powder, whatever you like, whatever you have on hand works. And then we are going to add just a little bit of liquid to the pan by way of the liquid aminos. And that just adds so much flavor already. I can smell it coming up off the pan. So I know it's going to give the perfect amount of savoriness to this meat sauce or meaty sauce, vegan meaty sauce. Another way that we can assist the vegetables in releasing their natural juices is adding in some salt, because salt draws water out of anything, including veggies. So by sprinkling some salt all over these veggies, they're going to start to release their own liquids. And then we'll get some liquid in this pan and help everything to start to cook down very nicely and simmer in their own juices. But you see, it's got some really nice brown, deep colors. That is also indicative of the nice, deep flavors that we've got going on already. And what was once a dry pan now has liquid sizzling on the bottom. So things are going perfectly according to plan. And I'm cooking this over high heat because this is a really small eye. With my gas stove, I would typically use medium high heat or medium heat because the flame gets really, really hot. So, this process shouldn't take forever, but you do want to watch it. You don't want to burn it unnecessarily. So don't cook it too high. All right, that looks perfect. Now we're adding in our diced bell pepper. Sprinkle that on in. Get all that out. We don't waste. We don't leave anything behind. Right? And it's just so beautiful and colorful as well. I just love that about cooking with plant-based foods is how much color you get to eat. Your food is so much more visually appealing because of the natural colors in the foods we eat. You don't have to eat a lot of artificial colors and dyes to experience all that vibrance. And the other beautiful thing about eating beautifully is that there are lots and lots of nutrients. The more colors you're eating, the wider variety of nourishing nutrients you're getting from your plants. So try to make your dishes as colorful as possible so that it's appealing to the eye, but it's also nourishing to the body. With that said, it's time to add in the chickpeas. I do want these to get a bit of these amazing flavors before we add in our tomato sauce. And the other nice thing is we don't have to spend all day cooking this on the stovetop because, well, it's going to bake in the oven for about an hour. So all the flavors will really get to marry once it's in the oven. And with these chickpeas, I like using chickpeas for a lot of reasons. I think they have great texture. I like the flavor. It's very neutral, so it picks up whatever you're cooking in. But lentils would also be super delicious. Lentils is probably my favorite legume to make pasta dishes with because it's so small. And when you cook it a certain way, it kind of mimics crumbled beef or crumbled meat. So these chickpeas are where it's at today, but lentils would also be an amazing add-in. And if you're looking for like a softer, creamier bean, cannellini beans would also be really, really good. And if you want to just make the texture a little bit more flaky, you could take about half of these chickpeas and mash them up with your fork or use a potato masher just so you can have some extra texture. And that would really, really, really look nice and taste really good as well. I've done it both ways. So yeah, we've got our chickpeas coated in all the seasonings and the flavor. It is time to give it a little taste to see if it needs any more salt. Wow. Honestly, I could just eat this with some rice, but I think it's really doing good on the salt. I'm going to add just a bit more because I'm going to add the tomato sauce to this, and the tomato sauce doesn't have any salt added to it. So add just a little bit more. I'm telling you, those liquid aminos really add that savory flavor. So don't skip it, especially when you're making any dish that you just want to have a little bit of meaty flavor to. Add a little bit of liquid aminos or soy sauce or tamari sauce into your ingredients and, just replace some of the salt with it, and you'll really, really see the depth of the flavor start to come out. Okay, so now it's time to add in our tomato sauce. So this is a 27-ounce jar of marinara sauce. Marinara sauce is really nice because it has a smoothness to it, but there are also some, nice chunks of diced tomato in here as well. So it's also a great source of texture and flavor in our meaty sauce. So we're gonna crack this open and not make a mess. Here we go. And we're just gonna pour most of it in. We're going to save a bit of it because we need it to line the base of our pan when we are assembling our lasagna. So that should do it. It's looking amazing. It's smelling so good. The brightness from the tomatoes is now complementing all of those savory flavors. And I'm telling you, that fennel seed, cumin, and paprika really adds that hint of flavor that reminds you of Italian sausage. So good. Always add it to any lasagna or honestly, almost any pasta dish I'm making just because it has those nostalgic flavors for me. And that's part of the joy of eating. It's like when you have really positive memories associated with eating certain dishes. And sometimes when you're, trying a new lifestyle, like any change in life, but especially when it comes to food, like choosing veganism, you might think that you have to let go of some of the nostalgia. And the longer I've been vegan, the more I've realized that I don't have to do that. I just have to find new ways to incorporate it. So it's really lovely. And yeah. Okay. So this is looking good. So I am going to scoop this whole thing over, and we are going to make space so that we can begin phase 3 and start assembling our lasagna. We've got our tofu, basil, spinach, sunflower seed ricotta here, right? We've got our marinara sauce, delicious. And here's our pan. I'm gonna sit it like that. And then here are our lasagna noodles. So I cooked these lasagna noodles in advance. As you can see, I am using a square dish. So this is smaller than your average rectangle dish that you usually see lasagna made in. What I'm going to do is cut my noodles so that they are the proper width for this pan. I will not be wasting them. I'll use them in another recipe later. But something I figured out in the process of developing this recipe is, you probably know this, but lasagna noodles are pretty delicate. And so it's always a good idea to undercook them compared to what the box says, especially if you want to make them in advance. So what I did was the lasagna noodles were the first thing I made. I only boiled them for 4 minutes. I immediately drained the hot water off of them, and then I put them in the cold water, let them sit so they didn't stick together, and then I drained them off after that. So these are like perfectly cooked noodles. And it's also nice to have them a little bit undercooked because they're going to cook in the oven. There's so much liquid from the sauce and the vegan cheese sauce that you want it to be able to absorb some of that as it's cooking and not become mushy and just fall apart. So we're ready to go. Let me start by, like I said, coating the base of the pan with some of this tomato sauce. Right. Oh, and I almost forgot one of the most important things, which is our vegan cheese. So I'll talk about this when it's time to add it. Okay, so first up, lasagna noodles. I'm just going to kind of look at these and cut them where it makes sense. So I think I'm going to cut them in half. My pan is a little bit narrower at the bottom and gets wider at the top, so I won't need to cut them as much as I go up. But yes, that's lovely. So I'm going to start off by going in with our vegan ricotta cheese. So I'm just going to dollop on each noodle just to create an even layer. Okay, and then we're just going to spread this out. And then we're going to go in with our sauce. Just once again, creating an even layer of that as well. So here is our next layer of lasagna ready, and we're going in more with our dairy-free ricotta. So very generous scoops of this on each noodle. And then we're just going to gently spread it out. And it's looking like I'm going to be able to get 3 very hearty layers of lasagna into this pan. So now we're going to do a scoop of the sauce with the mushrooms and the chickpeas and all the delicious vegetables. And the nice thing about a recipe like this too, in terms of customization, is you can add any vegetables you like. So you could add in some roasted eggplant, even roasted red peppers would be really good. You could add in some chopped up artichoke hearts. That gives a nice flaky, meaty texture as well, and a little bit of tang, a little bit more dimension to the flavors. You could add in some zucchini, squash, whatever you like. You can really add into this pasta and it's going to be super delicious. Instead of using spinach, you could use kale or Swiss chard or even collard greens. Any type of leafy green vegetable that you want to add into your cheesy sauce will work well. So feel free to make whatever adjustments and customizations that you like. All right, time for our next layer of noodles. And we want this top layer to have a really, really solid foundation. So if my noodles are overlapping a little bit, that's okay. Okay, so got that down. And then our last layer of this dairy-free ricotta cheese on top, pile it on. Another nice thing about this recipe is even though we did it in 3 separate steps, it still came together pretty quickly, but you could totally be doing a lot of this stuff simultaneously, you know, like you can be putting your sauce together and then putting together your vegan dairy-free ricotta, and your noodles can be boiling at the same time, and then you just assemble everything at once. So you could really cut the assembly time on this recipe down by half if you just make everything at once as opposed to doing it in separate steps. Sometimes it's kind of necessary just to get the hang of, you know, creating different recipes, but once you feel comfortable, you can totally make these things simultaneously, so you don't have to do it, you know, step by step by step. Okay, I'm going to turn this heat off, and then we're going to top this off with our last layer of chickpeas and mushrooms. So I'm going to use my slotted spoon because I actually want to get more of the chickpeas and stuff into this layer. Okay, looking very good. Okay, so we've got our top layer on. Move these scissors out of the way. And now it's time for cheese. Definitely follow your heart a try, but let me know in the comments, what is your favorite brand of vegan cheese? I'm always looking to try things, so going to be very generous with this layer of cheese because we want it to be bubbly. I love it when it's like bubbly and melty but crispy on the edges. I personally like the corner pieces of the lasagna. What section of the lasagna do you like? Some people like the center, some people just like a side edge, but I like the corners because they're like crispy on both edges, and then they're nice and tender and saucy in the middle. Okay. All right, so our lasagna is assembled. Cover this. I like to cover it with a layer of parchment paper and then top it with foil. And it's super important because vegan cheeses can kind of be a little bit temperamental in terms of melting. So like the shreds will all, you know, have you ever had a vegan cheese before and it's like dried out on top? It's kind of crispy. So the key is to trap in the moisture, and the steam will help this to melt out into a smooth, velvety, cheesy surface. So what I'm going to do is heat my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, cook this for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then I'm going to take my parchment paper off and my foil, and I'm going to turn it on broil on low for 10 minutes. And that's how you get that perfectly bubbly, crispy edge crust. You can go a little bit longer. Some people like their edges a little bit darker. I like a 10-minute broil on low. If you have to broil on high, you're going to want to watch it and do it for less time, but that's what we're going to do. And when you cook it, you want to let it cool down a little bit before you slice into it, because you know the lasagna can fall apart. But in the end, what you have as a result is this delicious lasagna. So this is a lasagna that I made yesterday, and it tastes better the next day. So this is also totally a dish that you can consider cooking a day in advance and then chilling out in the fridge and then serving the next day. The flavors just marry together that much more when you let it cool overnight first. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to be doing a lot more cooking demos, especially moving into the fall and winter. So many holidays, so many comfort food occasions coming up. So in the comments, let me know if there are some dishes that you would like to see veganized so that you can enjoy them with your family and friends and loved ones as the weather cools down. I would love to cook them for you add them to our website, and share them with you. Like this video if you enjoyed this demo, subscribe to our channel, comment if you made the recipe and how you liked it. And also, if you like my hoodie, this is Afro-Vegans Unite. You can support Afro-Vegan Society by purchasing one of these hoodies. We also have t-shirts, tote bags, and mugs on our Teespring site. So I will share the link in the description bar and in the email that I send out later. I just want to thank you so much for hanging out with me and cooking with me this evening. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend. And I will see you very soon. Bye, everybody.